Hello, my name is Andrew Sommerich. I'm our head of learning here at Microlearning. I'm based out of our London office, and I'm really delighted today to take you through our microlearning best practices. We hope to share with you today some great golden rules for producing great microlearning, whether it be on Ed or on any other platform. I have joining us today as well our account manager from here in London, Phoebe Cater. So Phoebe is on the line to answer any questions that you may have. So feel free to type through any questions during the broadcast, and I'd be more than happy to have Phoebe answer them. And we'll also have question time at the end. So let's just jump straight into it. So I'm just going to go over briefly what we're going to cover in this session. Firstly, I'm going to introduce you to the Edd Platform. Now, obviously some of you are probably familiar with the platform. This will be brief, but it's just to give an overview to anyone who might not be familiar with the platform and the goals that we had in designing it. Beyond this, we're going to talk about some key microlearning principles and some do's and don'ts. So these are really great tips for producing great microlearning. After that, we're going to have a little demonstration of the authoring tool, including how to use some of our most popular templates and how to set up a game. We're going to talk about making great branding and why branding is so important for your micro lessons. And then finally, we're going to talk through some of the most common questions that we get, not just me, but also our account managers and client success department. I've gone to them and asked them, what are the most common questions that you guys receive? And we're going to go through the answers to those common questions. But in saying that, I'm sure you'll think of some questions that I don't cover. So please, as I said, type questions as we go. We have Phoebe also on the broadcast ready to respond to any questions. And I also have, we'll have the time at the end to answer those questions. So let me just give you a brief overview of the Edd Platform. And to do that, we're going to sort of take a step back and look at the roles of traditional instructional designers. So at Edd, we like to say that your typical instructional designer wears many hats. So first and foremost, you have to be a subject matter expert and a teacher. So these are probably the two most important things that you have to be while you're an instructional designer. You have to know the content and you have to know how to teach it. But beyond that, in traditional e-learning platforms, you also need to be a user interface and a user experience designer. You also have to be a tester to make sure that the lesson runs smoothly. And you also have to be a web developer. You have to know code and you have to know how to make it look great. And what we wanted to do when we were developing Edd was to take away the responsibility of these three on the right, take away that burden for you. And so you can just focus on being a subject matter expert and a teacher as an instructional designer. So instead of having to be a user interface and a user experience designer, Edd takes care of the distribution, user experience, and navigation for you. Instead of having to be a tester, our tool is template based. So all the interactions are tested, they work in any configuration, and we have extensive testing on our end to make sure that they run smoothly for you. And instead of having to be a web developer and get that branding right and get that layout looking good, we have a great design, world-class design, and effortless custom branding that's just drag and drop. It's very, very simple. And I'm going to show you briefly how that works later on in the presentation. So speaking of templates, we do have three template categories, and these sort of extend to other microlearning platforms as well. There's typically only three sorts of interactions when it comes to e-learning. So the first one is knowledge transfer, of course, and this is just, an existing authoring tool. Typically what you'd find is an image and some text below it. But with Edd, you also have the ability to embed audio, to embed video, and as I said, to embed images and text. And there's a variety of ways to do that. We're going to see a variety of ways to do that in the authoring tool demonstration. Secondly, there's interactive templates. So these are simple interactions where there is a correct answer and an incorrect answer, or several incorrect answers. So these are, in Edd, we like to make them fully engaging and as interactive as possible. And instead of, for example, just having one option for a multiple choice template, there'd be 5 or 6 ways to ask the same question, and that leads to a bit more engagement. And thirdly, we have game templates. So as we're going to see momentarily, it's very, very simple to configure and put a game into your lesson and make that little bit extra engaging. Additionally to that, it does give your learners a chance to sort of play around with the information a bit more and further embed it into their long-term memory and get those competencies really, high up on their memory. So I'll just share with you a few golden rules when it comes to templates and thinking about what templates you're going to include in your lesson. So I would always include one knowledge transfer template for every reinforcement. So essentially what that means is you share some knowledge, transfer some knowledge, and then you back it up with a reinforcement. Additionally to that as well, you can add games at the end. So, you have one knowledge transfer, then a question, then one knowledge transfer, then a question, then a game. And that can be a really great way to reinforce a concept. Another golden rule is to aim for 8 slides per lesson. And what that means is it equates to about 5 minutes of lesson time. More is fine, less is fine. But 8 is a great rule of thumb. It's a good way of ensuring that your learners are not going to be bored by the lesson, they're not going to think it's too long, and also so that they can fit it into whatever spare time they have. If they have 5 minutes on their lunch break where they're waiting in line at the checkout or something like that, they just have those 5 minutes to do a quick lesson and actually learn something and make something out of that spare time that they do have. If you end up making that lesson too long, then they're not going to be able to fit it into that spare time. Likewise, if it's too short, it's not going to be significant enough to be worth their time. So 8 slides per lesson is a really great rule of thumb. So now let's talk a bit about planning lessons for microlearning. So you have your content, you're the expert. So what you should do is break that content down into subcategories. Now this, of course, has to be based on your own knowledge of the material. You come in here as the expert, you know your content, and you want to break that content down into the smallest categories possible. In saying that, though, you do need to consider cognitive loads. So you don't want to break it down too largely. You want to make sure it is broken down into those tiny chunks, because it's so much easier to split up a lesson than to cram a lot into one small lesson. So you don't want to pack too much into a lesson. You don't want to overload your learners, and you don't want to make them hate their learning because it's trying to teach them too much and making it unnecessarily complicated. In saying that, though, you do want to add review lessons, just so you make sure that your learners are able to go over your content, they're able to play with it a bit more and get it reinforced in their long-term memory. And in saying that as well, your learners are going to want to come back and do lessons again. So they're not just going to want to do those review lessons, they're going to want to go and take those lessons again that they might have already taken. So that's why it's really important to have course and lesson descriptions that are accurate and detailed enough so that your learners are going to be able to look at the lesson that they've done and know exactly what was in it, and then think to themselves, yep, that's the lesson I want to take again. So let's look at some examples of some course structures. Now, I've tried to make these practical and applicable to a variety of circumstances to just show you how extensive and versatile microlearning really can be. So I've just taken the example of 1 week. So let's look at the new iPhone, so the new iPhone XR. On Monday, for example, you give an introduction to all the product features. So that would be, talking about every single feature from sort of a bird's eye view and asking a few basic questions, a few sort of essentials that your, for in this example, I suppose it would be shopkeepers would need to know to talk about the phone to their customers. On Tuesday, you talk about one of the main features, which would be the liquid retina screen. You talk about the screen in detail and ask detailed questions about that. What's the specific resolution? How many inches diagonally is the screen? That sort of thing. What are the special features of the screen? And talk a bit more about just that one aspect of the phone. On Wednesday, you'd maybe have a lesson about how to talk to customers about the new device. And on Thursday, likewise, you talk about common issues during the sales process. So handling disputes, what if they are terminating their contract early, that sort of thing, those things that tend to come up when you're trying to sell a phone to someone. And then on Friday, you do a review of all that. So a review lesson could be gamified, could be just some questions, some time questions from Monday to Thursday's lessons. In this second example, so this is more of a competency course, we talk about loss prevention. So on Monday, we'd introduce loss prevention. What is it? Why is it so important? On Tuesday, you'd talk about common methods of theft. So maybe you'd think of maybe 3 or 4 ways that people steal things from retail shops. On Wednesday, we talk about equipment to prevent theft and sort of what that is, what that entails. And then on Thursday, of course, we talk about procedures and actions to prevent theft. On Friday, we'd have a gamified review. So once again, it's just taking those main points from the lessons and reviewing them. Now, here's a bit of a different example. So say, for example, you really need to, there's just been a disease outbreak. So the Zika virus, which sort of was a disease, a couple of years ago, they needed to educate a lot of doctors very quickly, and microlearning would have been a perfect application for this. So on Monday, you talk about the significance and symptoms of Zika in that first lesson. On Tuesday, you talk about the pathophysiology of Zika in a bit more detail. Wednesday and Thursday, you could maybe do a case study. So on Wednesday's case study, it could be a man, and on Thursdays, it could be a woman. And you could talk about the differences in symptoms between men and women on those 2 different days. And then on Friday, of course, this is more of definitely something, important that you're going to want to have to test. So you could actually include a test as in Friday's lesson. So you could evaluate your learners and see, are these people going to be competent enough to go out on the field and diagnose the Zika virus? Moving a bit further away from diseases now and talking about, maybe an alcohol lesson. So on Monday, this is an example for an introduction to vodka. Say a vodka company wants to educate bartenders or shopkeepers on vodka. Here's how they'd probably do that. So on Monday, you define vodka, Tuesday, how vodka is made, Wednesday, the different varieties of vodka, Thursday, learn 2 vodka cocktails, just give them that little bit of practical knowledge. And then on Friday, have a little bit of a review at the end of the week. So as you can see, there's a variety of ways to use microlearning. And there's some really interesting real-world applications. One important thing that I really want to emphasize when it comes to microlearning best practices, especially with the Edd Platform, is to use a variety of templates. So essentially, there's a sort of a theory in traditional e-learning that if you vary the interaction too much, you're going to confuse your learners. And what I would like to say, is that times have changed. It's 2018, not 1998 anymore. And 20 years on, people are more used to touchscreen interactions. They're a bit more familiar with how to use a smartphone and that sort of thing. And we feel that our templates at Edd have been user tested so much, and we really don't have any user issues with them. So in saying that as well, using the same template over and over again can get really, really boring for your learners. So what I would suggest is, here on the left is an example of 3 different, here's 3 examples of the same question or the same outcome being reinforced with different templates. So this is about open questions, and it's asking learners to identify the difference between an open question and a closed question. What I'd say is, there's so many ways to ask the same thing in Edd. Why would you ever need to use the same template twice within a lesson? We have over 50 templates, so you're always able to sort of vary that interaction up and to change it up and to make it work really well for your learners and in a way that engages them more and gives them a bit of variety in their learning. So in saying that, we're going to jump straight into a demonstration of the authoring tool. And if you have used the authoring tool before, this is a great opportunity to see maybe some things you haven't seen before. So let me just jump out of our presentation and we'll jump straight into the authoring tool. So I have it here with me, a course collection. And to save time, I've already gone ahead and made this course. But to create a new course, it's very simple. You just press the Create a New Course button. So I'm going to jump into this course on the iPad Pro. Now, a great thing about the Edd Platform is, the iPad Pro was only announced about 48 hours ago, so the new iPad Pro. And what we're going to do now is make a complete lesson on it that we could roll out to a retail employee. We're going to make the lesson in 20 or 30 minutes, and it's just going to be really, really simple and really, really easy for us to get a great quality lesson out to our learners that they're going to be able to be primed on that information straight away. So obviously up here, we name our course and we give it a description. So it's really important to have a detailed description and, really show what this is about. I've been a bit brief in this description just for the sake of time, but I'm just going to show you how easy it is to edit that. So you can just use your keyboard to change the name, and as you can see, all the changes are saved instantly up the top. So it's as simple as that. You just click and you can edit the name and description of the course. Branding as well, just to save a bit of time. I've already put this in, but as you can see, it's as simple as looking at these dimensions, finding an image that matches, or making your own image that matches and uploading it just here by dragging and dropping or pressing the upload image button. You can also change the color of the text in the default background. If you don't have a background that you want to upload, you can just pick one of our default colors here, and you can also change the color of the text in this little menu here. We also have a custom CSS feature, which is for a bit more, it's for more advanced users. If they just want to change the specifics of, maybe they want a button to be a different color, or maybe they want a line to be a different color, they can, if you do know CSS code, you can do that. But of course, you don't have to do that. You can deploy a great course without ever touching CSS. So what I'm going to do is jump straight into this lesson, and we're going to jump straight into our authoring tool. Now, at the moment on the platform, we do have our older authoring tool that's set as the default. However, we do have a new and improved authoring tool. So I'm going to just hit this try it now button up here, and we're going to use our new authoring tool for this demonstration here today. And we'll just give you a glimpse of what the future is going to sort of look like for us. So over here on the right, so the first thing you notice is this blue bar here that you can use to navigate between the different slides. And not only that, but you also have these navigation buttons. If you just want to navigate in order, you can use the right hand one and the left hand one. They just go forward and back there. You can even change the device that you're previewing it on. So right now we're looking at what it would look like on an iPhone SE, which is one of our smaller devices. But if you wanted to see what it looked like on an iPad, you just change it up there. You can quickly have a look and then switch back in just a couple of seconds. Not only that, but in this preview panel here, everything is interactive. So, it might just look like a picture of what it's going to look like, but no, it's completely interactive. So this OK, let's go button completely works. If I click it, it moves to the next slide. I can even go here into the menu and hit review last slide. And that's the exact menu your learners are going to see. That's exactly what it's going to look like on the phone. And you can use it exactly how it's going to work on a device. Which is the great thing about Edd is any testing you do need to do can happen right there in the authoring tool, and you'll see it exactly as your learners are going to see it. So the first thing we're going to do is look at one of our most common templates, which is the image gallery template. I'm going to go up here. Normally to add a new slide, you just press this plus button here, but I'm going to go up here because we want to change this title slide from being a title slide. We want to change it to an image gallery slide and include some images in there. So I'm going to go up here to template, and I'm going to pick from our template library. Now, as you can see, there's so many options for different templates, and this is just the content section. So as you can see, we've got videos in here. We've got, you can even include a table. Speech bubble one is a brand new template that's just been put in there. So we're adding new templates all the time. Scrolling media is great if you've got a lot of text. But we just have an image and some text today. So I'm going to include this image gallery slide here. I'm just going to press it, and it should change that first title slide. It should change it to an image gallery slide. Now, it couldn't be easier to upload an image as the learner comes into the lesson. So I've just got some images over here of the new iPad. I'm just going to click and drag that one into there. And if we just give it a couple of seconds to upload, it'll instantly appear there in the lesson. So just simple as that, you just upload an image like that. Instead of, obviously this is just sample text we've put in there. I've got a little bit of text here that we've gotten from the Apple site about the iPad Pro. So I'm just going to copy that and put it into there. Now, if we do want to make that text bigger, we can just hit up here and it'll actually make it really, really big. We don't have to have it that big, of course. We can just change the text size with these buttons up here. And you'll see exactly what it's going to look like in the preview panel there. Now for our next, so basically this interaction is an image slider. So learners are just going to use their finger to drag between the different images in the slide. So for our next part of this slide, we're not going to have an image. So we're just going to hit this X button. It's going to take away that image straight away. And I'm just going to put a caption. So our caption, oh, my mistake. Our caption is this: the new iPad Pro is the ultimate expression of that vision. And we're going to make that one nice and big. So part 1, part 2, and then we can delete part 3 because we're just going to have 2 parts in this first image gallery slide. And that's a slide completely configured. We do have a few other options here, like you can add narration in there. You can make it a light box, which basically just takes away the background. And as you can see, any of these options you want to have a play around with, just feel free to. There's no, you're not committing to anything. You can instantly just go back and change anything. So after this, what we're going to add is actually a question. So we want to, we've shared some knowledge and now we want to ask a question about it. So I'm just going to add a new slide. Now, if this was a real lesson, you'd impart some knowledge probably about the main feature of the new iPad, which is the Apple Pencil. So we're going to just go into this multiple choice question now, and we're going to ask a question about the Apple Pencil, which comes with the new iPad. So as you can see, we've got quite a few multiple choice questions to pick from. So we've got your traditional looking multiple choice here. We've got one that looks like sort of a chat, like a text message chat conversation. Or we've got this one, which is called Circle the Answer, which actually gets learners to draw a circle around the answer that they think is correct. So what we're going to do is add that one into our lesson. And it's got some placeholder text in here, but of course we're going to change that, and we're just going to write which of these features is new to the Apple Pencil. And now the keyword in here is going to be new, so we don't want features that were already existing, so we're going to highlight it and make it bold. My mistake, that doesn't seem to be working, so I'll just put some asterisks around new, and what that does is it makes it bold in the actual lesson. So we use markdown in the lesson to make it bold. So the correct answer will be wireless charging. So that's our new feature, but we also need some distractors. So wireless functionality is not a new feature, and also pencil-shaped design is obviously not a new feature. It's always looked like a pencil. Now, when the learner goes to answer that, basically they go and they circle the correct answer. Let's say they circle an incorrect answer, like pencil-shaped design. They press OK. This will just pop up and say not quite. You haven't got it quite right. And we can actually change that incorrect reinforcement to whatever we want. So we can just make it say wrong. But what they probably want to know is why they were wrong and what the correct answer was. So you just have to include that information here underneath. So we have just a little blurb here, be sure to tell customers that the wireless charging feature is new to the Apple Pencil. We can even make that wireless charging part bold so they know exactly where the correct answer is in the sentence. So now they have, when they answer that question incorrectly, let me just go back and forward and we'll reset that slide. So when they answer that question incorrectly, I'm going to hit OK, and they're going to find out that they're wrong. However, here's the correct answer, and that gives them a bit of a reinforcement and something they've learned to take away. So it's really important in that answer text to include the correct answer and maybe also a bit of additional information that they wouldn't have otherwise have gotten. You don't want to include anything too new in that answer text section because your learners, that continue button is so big and beautiful and they're just going to click it. It's just for those learners who really, really want to grab that information and really take as much as they can out of the lessons. You don't want to include any new information or anything that's really pivotal in that takeaway. Now we're going to look a bit further on in the template gallery. So we've got some numbers templates. So these are great for anything with prices, statistics, that sort of thing. Anything with a numerical value as the answer. We've got some relationship templates, so connect the dots, that sort of thing. I'm just going to leave these for you to discover when you go in and sign up for our free evaluation period. It's unlimited trial, so if you just sign up at edapp.com, you'll be able to play around with the authoring tool yourselves. But what I'm going to show you today is how to configure a game and how amazingly easy it is to make a fully functioning game within the lesson that's mobile compatible and also really, really fun for your learners too. So we've got this game called True or False, but what I'm going to do today is actually we're going to take it away from True or False and we're going to make it specifically about the iPhone and the iPad. So you can take these games and customize them. They're incredibly versatile and you can change them in many different ways. So instead of true or false, so basically true or false, when you jump into it, it gives you facts and you have to swipe them to either the true side or the false side. It's a little bit like, we like to say, it's a bit like the mobile app Tinder. It's a bit like dating the facts, you want the right ones to swipe right and the wrong ones to swipe left. So you don't have to use it as a true or false game though. What we can do today is change true or false. We can change it to iPhone or iPad. And I've got a little bit of text here that we can include. So basically these instructions say, on your screen will appear unique selling points of the new iPad and unique selling points of the new iPhone. Drag the iPhone features to the right and the iPad features to the left. So now all we have to do is to make this game a bit more relevant is to change the text that we have for true or false, which appear up here on the left and on the right. We just change them to, we'll change false to iPhone and we'll change true to iPad. And that way, any correct answer is going to relate to the iPad and any incorrect answer is going to relate to the iPhone. So just bear with me. I'll show you what that looks like. So a first feature, I suppose, that would be applicable to the iPad would be, can replace your computer. So we're going to make that correct because it relates to the iPad. One that relates to the iPhone would be, can fit in your pocket. My apologies, doesn't seem like I can spell today. And then one that applies to the iPad would be, can have an Apple Pencil. Now we've got that game pretty much completely configured. We can change a few other options like the time limit that we give. So we might be giving a little bit too long a time to our learners. So we can change that to 10,000 milliseconds, which would be 10 seconds. We can also change how much it's worth. So we can look at stars here, and stars are our inbuilt rewards mechanism that learners can go and spend on prizes. So we can change that to be worth, we can make it be worth 5 stars. You can make it be worth 100 stars if you're feeling generous. So what I'm going to do is just hit OK, I'm ready, and we're going to test this game out right here. So as you can see, the system's gone in and replaced our facts with features of the iPhone and the iPad. So can replace a computer, that's an iPad, can have an Apple Pencil, also iPad, can fit in your pocket, that's iPhone. And as you can see, my score is just going up because I'm getting all of these right. Once the game reaches the end, we're going to learn how we did. We're going to see how many stars we got. And right here, big and beautiful, is play again. So learners can go back, play with that knowledge again, and go over and over again at that game and get that knowledge really embedded into their long-term memory, which is really, something that's really exciting for a lot of our learners. Now, just another game that I'll just show you finally before we leave the authoring tool and talk a bit more about microlearning is the Find a Word game. So the Find a Word is really, really easy and simple to configure, and it's one of the most fun games. It's a newer addition to the authoring tool, so it's a newer template. So I'm just going to show you how it works. So instead of the title that we've got in there as a sample, what we're going to put is find the key features of the iPad Pro below. And for our key features, we're going to put pencil, display, and power. So what's happened now is the system's gone in and actually replaced every letter with letters from here, and you have to go ahead and find the correct words. Now, I'm sure that you guys have found this way quicker than I have. I'm not too sure where, here we go. So I found display, it runs across there. Now I hit OK, I'm done, and it's going to tell me where both the other words were. They were both hiding, they were backwards, so that's clearly not my fault. But let's jump out of the authoring tool now. So as you can see, it's really, really simple to configure games. It's simple to configure templates, and it's, we've just gone ahead and made a completely functioning lesson in just a few minutes that you can go ahead and deploy to your staff. Compared to traditional e-learning, it's just miles ahead and miles faster. So I'm going to jump back into our presentation, and we're going to just look at branding. I'm just going to talk briefly about branding and how it can really help your lessons out. So here's 3 examples of, these are just samples of clients that obviously are not real, but we don't share our real client materials, but this is just to give you an idea of how you can brand a lesson in a really effective way. So on the left, we've got an example, which is Maybelline. Now, obviously there's no background, but what this does is accentuates the content within the lesson and really shows off, the brand's style and how it's clean and different. In the middle, of course, we've got Subway, which is a sandwich shop. And then in the background, we've got a sandwich, of course, just to give their learners, put them into that frame of reference where they are in their workplace and put them into that mentality of, oh, I'm at work, I work for Subway. All right, let's do my Subway training. Gets that knowledge activated, activates their prior knowledge and gets them ready to work. And on the right, of course, we've got Adidas. So Adidas, essentially, it's sports, it's fast. So they've got some lovely lines in there to show off the focus and the direction that they have as a brand. And of course, all 3 of these have their logos right there in the top left corner, which is really easy to configure as well on the platform. So Adidas has the 3 stripes and Subway's got the Subway logo. It's really, really important to include those logos and to get learners into that frame of reference for your brand. So a lot of people are, they just leave the branding as the default. But what I would say to that is, that your branding can make what is already a great lesson, it can make it even better. Good branding really doesn't detract from any messaging in the lesson. It's not really a distraction, but it actually adds to it by representing your brand and making your brand a bit more special. It makes the lesson something that belong to you more than just belonging to, the learner's phone. Branding's simple and easy. As you've seen, it's just a simple drag and drop of an image. But also be sure to test your lesson for colors clashing. So run through the lesson quickly and make sure that there's no black on black or white on white. And if that is a problem, it's very easy to fix. Just change the text color and make sure you stick to either a dark background or a light background. Try not to go sort of too in between on any backgrounds. Now let's talk about pricing. So I touched briefly on stars. So I'm going to talk about assigning stars correctly and making those stars actually meaningful for learners. So good practice is to assign stars based on difficulty or time required. And in saying that, the platform does actually automatically assign stars depending on these factors. So if you do leave the stars as default, they're going to sort of be the recommended amount. But if you want to give more for whatever reason, then you're completely able to do that. Game templates use a sliding scale, so any game template you have, it'll depend on the amount of points that the learner earns as to how many stars they win. However, reinforcement templates like multiple choice, that sort of thing, it's all or nothing. So they get it correct, they get all the stars. If they get it incorrect, they get no stars. Learners will see exactly how many stars are available in the top of the screen for a few seconds as they arrive on the slide. So they're instantly motivated to do well on that slide if they see a high amount of stars. It's generally enough to use 1 or 2 stars for simpler reinforcements. These are quite quick. They shouldn't be too difficult. But if you do want to give a few more stars, then it can really encourage your learners to do better. What sort of prizes can Edd give out and how does it do it? Let's have a look at that. So Edd has built-in rewards that make prizing simple and authentic. We've got 3 sorts of games. So 2 are chance and 1 is auction. So auction is great for courses with many stars and chance are best for lessons with fewer stars. So let's have a closer look at these 3. So spin to win looks a bit like a slot machine in a casino. Lucky Dip is the same chance mechanism, but without the slot machine visual. And auction, really it just has a timer and it says how long is left and shows them the prize. They can make a bid on any prize. So what sorts of prizes can you give out? Basically anything with code that's sort of redeemable online. So Edd can dispense any type of single digital coupon, we call them. So iTunes vouchers, Amazon vouchers, Google Play vouchers, Best Buy vouchers, even the online vouchers that have a monetary value. These are instantly emailed to learners, so they're provided by push notification and email, so they'll instantly receive that code once they fill in their email address. Learners are asked to leave advice for other learners, so they're asked to sort of say, how did you get so many stars to win a great prize? And what this does is it leads to a bit more of a socialization element. It gives them a bit of encouragement from people they know. Now, if you're going to include video in your lesson, I would fully recommend you do. What I would do, though, is follow these rules. So firstly, 30 seconds is a really achievable goal for a movie. Any longer and learners are going to become disinterested, they'll get a bit bored. So what you want to do is make sure your video is relevant and make sure it's only about 30 seconds long. Remove any intro sequences that you've got in the video itself. So theme songs, graphics, that sort of thing. Basically, the Ed lesson itself is a great sort of intro sequence to the video. So it gets learners primed for a video. You can warn them that a video is coming, and it serves really well as sort of an introduction. Reinforce your videos with activities. So don't just have a video-only lesson. Your retention really won't be as strong if you just have a video-only lesson. Square-shaped videos work really well on all devices, including smartphones. But if you know that all your learners are going to be on a computer, though, make your video obviously a bit wider for the wider screen on a computer. But the great rule of thumb is square-shaped videos, which are becoming more and more popular, particularly due to the prominence of smartphones. So they're really easy to sort of produce and find. And if you do need any help with that, please just feel free to get in touch. For technical guidelines for videos, please visit our blog site, edapp.com/blog, and search for video. Now let's look at some really common questions that we do get. And in saying that, I'd love to field your questions. I can see that we've already got some come through. I'll get to those straight after we've gone through the most common questions. So firstly, a lot of people, they say, what's the best template for such and such? And I would say to that, the best way to see different usages of different templates is by playing around with them in the authoring tool. So just go ahead and you can see how easy it is to go in that template library and add templates and play around with them. You can also see a guide to our 50 templates, sorry, more than 50 templates, over 50 templates at that website there. So edapp.com/rapid authoring/template library. And on that page, you can actually play around with each and every one of the 50 templates, go through them, interact with them, and imagine, the possibilities and how they could work for you. Another question that we get a lot is, what image sizes do you recommend? So for branding, what I would recommend is you stick to the dimensions that you see on that branding page. So there's guidelines there that are specific dimensions, and those are the image sizes rather that we find work best. However, within the lesson, it's best not to exceed 400 pixels on any side of an image. So 400 by 400 would be the highest resolution. My mistake. So highest resolution. Having larger images than that can actually make learners' devices a bit slow, and it also eats up a lot of their mobile data, especially if they're in a country with mobile data that's not quite good, or even maybe a city there where their data isn't very fast. It can actually really slow down the learning experience, and you really don't want that for your learners for something so unnecessary like an image that's just a bit too big. So another question we get is, how are your learners actually going to install the app? How are they going to get it on their devices? And all they have to do is go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and search for Edd. The easiest way to get learners to register is with an invite code. So in the registration menu in users in the LMS, you can set an invite code, and your learners are going to quickly be able to sign up to Edd after they've installed it on their devices. There's also a method where you can enter their email address and they'll get an email inviting them to sign up. But I would say that, it depends on your situation. If you can just get them to install the app and enter an invite code, it is by far the easiest way. Can learners still take lessons if they only have a computer, or say, for example, they don't want to use their smartphone for a work thing? Then absolutely, they can use web.edapp.com to access the app in their browser. But they also don't get those daily push notifications to remember to take their lessons. So what I'd recommend is that you get them to install the app and convince them to do that. If not, they just have that one disadvantage that they won't get those push notifications. So that's it. That's our presentation. And what I'm going to do now is jump into your questions. I also have I see there's quite a few questions here. I have Phoebe on the line. Phoebe, are you there?
Hi there, Andrew. Thank you. So keep those questions coming through in the feedback box on the right. One question we have received is someone would like to see the URL import functionality.
Yeah, so the URL import functionality is really exciting. It's coming soon. But what I can do, I did actually catch wind that this question was coming, so I've set up a little demonstration of it as a bit of an extension to our iPad Pro lesson. So what I'm going to do is just leave these changes, jump back out into our older authoring tool just so I can demonstrate this feature. So I'm going to come here and make a new lesson. Now, what we can do with the URL import feature is say, for example, you have a web page or something and you want to grab that content and quickly put it into an ed lesson. Now, obviously, it's not going to be an ideal lesson. It's not going to be formatted for microlearning, but it kind of gets you part of the way there. It gets you most of the way there, and essentially you can go in and moderate the content that comes through. So we're just going to make this new lesson and jump into the authoring tool. Now what I've got here is an iPad Pro article that's obviously just came out the other day, and what our tool is going to do, if I just copy this URL and I jump into our authoring tool, instead of hitting add a new slide, I hit import content from URL. It's going to ask me for that URL. I'll paste it there and press OK. And I'll give the authoring tool just a few seconds. And what it's doing is looking at that URL, breaking it down into different slides, looking at the content and seeing what it can include in a lesson. We just give it a couple more seconds. I don't know why it's normally it's a little bit faster than this. Here we go. So as you can see, there's now a ton of slides here. And in our first slide, we've got sort of the text from the article. We can jump through and it'll even, that article is a bit light on images, but normally it puts in all the images in a lovely template. And essentially, it makes a lesson straight away about whatever subject is on the website. So were there any other questions, Phoebe?
Yes, we have a few more on our upcoming features and what's in the pipeline, one specifically about social learning and applying that to a lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. So social learning is really easy to apply to a lesson. Essentially, you just come down here and within any content template, so not reinforcement templates, you open the social learning tab here and just tick open for discussion. What that's going to do is put a little bubble up here, and learners are going to be able to click that bubble and actually chat with other learners. So that's a really nifty feature that is available now. It's not a preview feature, so you can configure social learning for any lesson at this point.
Great. And one other question was if we're able to gather data on who is using desktop and who is using what smart device. The answer is that we currently don't have that insight, but please reach out to your account manager as they may be able to source this information for you. Another question as well was when will push notifications be available to an enterprise user to customize themselves? So this is something that's offered with our account management packages, and it can be handled by them for you. It's something that you can customize and dictate the time and the date that you would deliver these, and you would work quite closely with your account manager to do so. It is in the pipeline for the future to be publicly available, but we'll keep you in touch. Andrew, that was all the questions that we have at the moment. If we didn't quite get to your question, we'll reach out to you directly via email.
Cool. I also did just see this question, I think it just came through, a survey feature. So we do actually have survey templates that are available within the template library. So if you jump into survey here, we've got 3 different types of templates, and what those survey results are going to go to is the analytics tab. You'll just hit surveys and you'll be able to see the results of those surveys. So you don't have to use a separate tool to be able to give a survey to your learners. But yeah, no, I think that covers all the questions that we had. So thanks for helping me out there, Phoebe. And thank you everyone for attending the webinar. Sorry that we've run a bit over time, but I hope it was beneficial to everybody. So thanks once again. My name is Andrew Sommerich with Phoebe Cater, and have a wonderful day, afternoon, morning, wherever you may be. Thank you.